On December 16, 1944, in Belgium's Ardennes forest, German panzer divisions surged forward. Under Field Marshal Walter Model, the 5th and 6th Panzer Armies, totaling 200,000 men, struck an 85-mile front. American units, including the 1st Army under General Courtney Hodges, reeled from the assault. Snow blanketed the rugged terrain, temperatures plunged below zero. The German plan: seize Antwerp, 120 miles distant, to choke Allied supply lines. U.S. logistics, anchored by 22,000 trucks, faced chaos. The services of supply, led by Lieutenant General John C. H. Lee, scrambled to redirect fuel and ammunition. German tanks, low on fuel, aimed for U.S. depots at Stavelot. Narrow roads clogged. Visibility dropped to 50 yards in fog. American quartermasters worked through the night, rerouting convoys. The battle's first hours tested systems against surprise and terrain. Fog and low cloud choked visibility across the Ardennes by December 18, 1944. The 6th SS Panzer Army and 5th Panzer Army drove into the 1st United States Army's front, aiming for Antwerp to rupture Allied supply. The United States Communications Zone, under Lieutenant General John C. H. Lee, redirected fuel, ammunition, and rations at speed. Tens of thousands of trucks, many crewed by veterans of the Red Ball Express, pushed along icy, narrow roads while engineers cleared choke points and threw Bailey bridges across blown crossings. Around Liège and Stavelot, vast fuel stocks, totaling millions of gallons, were moved or destroyed to prevent German capture. When skies cleared on December 23, C-47s and gliders airdropped hundreds of tons to Bastogne, whose defenders had been encircled since December 20. By December 26, the 4th Armored Division broke through. American supply lines stretched thin from Normandy ports to the front, strained by the rapid advance since summer. The communications zone coordinated depots in Belgium and Luxembourg, stocked with ammunition and food for sustained combat. Truck convoys formed the backbone, hauling loads over bomb-cratered paths under threat of ambush. Engineers of the 11th Group repaired rail lines crippled by prior Allied bombing, restoring partial flow by December 21. Forward depots and Army service units cut lead times with expedited, on-the-spot allocations to pinned divisions. The 4th Armored Division's trains received shells within hours of requests, enabling counter-thrusts. Drivers navigated blacked-out routes, headlights dimmed to avoid Luftwaffe spotters. One column, bound for the 28th Infantry Division, detoured through frozen fields to evade a German blocking force, arriving with fuel as tanks idled on fumes. Bastogne emerged as the hinge of the defense, its 7 roads vital for German maneuver. The 101st Airborne Division rushed in on December 18, dug in alongside elements of the 10th Armored Division. Encirclement tightened by December 20, isolating 2,000 vehicles and cutting wired communications. Rations dropped to 1 hot meal every 2 days. Medical supplies ran low amid rising wounded. The 9th Troop Carrier Command orchestrated resupply from bases in France, launching missions despite overcast skies. C-47. Transports dropped 850 tons, from December 23 to 27, parachutes blooming amid flak bursts. Gliders followed on clearer days, towing jeeps and anti-tank guns to reinforce the perimeter. Paratroopers scavenged crates under sniper fire, distributing ammunition to foxholes in sub-zero chill. This aerial bridge sustained the garrison, buying time for ground relief. The logistical pivot relied on improvisation amid cascading disruptions. When German paratroopers severed rails near Spa on December 17, quartermasters shifted entirely to road haulage. The 14th Major Port oversaw Antwerp's partial unloading, funneling cargo inland despite Vosne strikes. A Vosne hit a Liège depot on December 16, detonating 400,000 gallons in a fireball that lit the night sky. Undeterred, crews evacuated adjacent stocks, prioritizing fuel for Patton's Third Army pivot north. The 1,104th Engineer Group rebuilt spans over the Arth River, allowing convoys to cross under artillery lulls. Truck engines strained on steep grades, overheating in the biting cold that gripped the region after December 19. Heavier snow blanketed the forest by December 20, turning paths to mire and slowing advances on both sides. American mechanics serviced vehicles hourly, preventing frozen oil from seizing components. German columns, meanwhile, bogged in their own web of constraints. The 5th Panzer Army advanced with fuel for 60 miles, banking on seized dumps to extend reach. Kampfgruppe Piper captured 50,000 gallons at Bühlingen on December 17, but pressed on without refueling fully. Engineers struggled to span the Amblève River at Stavelot, delayed by American demolitions. The main depot north of town, holding up to 3 million gallons in jerrycans, slipped their grasp as United States forces torched sections. One improvised blaze near Francorchamps consumed 124,000 gallons, creating a flaming barrier that halted tanks. Narrow trails jammed with half-tracks and infantry exposed when clouds parted. Allied fighter bombers struck repeatedly after December 23, destroying dozens of vehicles in strafing passes. A convoy near Malmedy lost 30 trucks to P-47 Thunderbolts in a single raid, scattering debris across the snow. The unsung labor fell to quartermasters and combat engineers, toiling in the rear echelons. Personnel of the 4th Armored Division Service Company unloaded ammunition under distant shell fire, stacking crates for forward distribution. The 83rd Infantry Division's truck battalion hauled rations through blizzards, headlights off to pierce the fog-shrouded dusk. In Bastogne, artillerymen of the 969th Field Artillery Battalion conserved shells, firing only at confirmed targets to stretch meager stocks. Pilots of the 439th Troop Carrier Group nursed C-47s through turbulence, releasing bundles perilously close to encircled lines. These efforts knit the frayed network, turning potential rout into stubborn hold. Commanders at corps level adjusted plans on the fly, drawing from theater reserves to feed the Bulge's flanks. Cold line. Convoys crossed 50 miles under enemy fire. By late December 25, the tide shifted as resupplied units massed for breakout. The Third Army's XX Corps funneled fuel from Lorraine depots, armoring the southern shoulder. German reserves, the 116th Panzer Division among them, idled short of fuel, their rail shuttles bombed to wreckage. American airlift tonnage mounted, gliders landing with precision in fleeting clear spells. The contrast sharpened. United States systems flexed with redundancy, while adversaries chased shadows of captured bounty. Bastogne's defenders, bolstered by drops, repelled probes that cost the enemy dearly. Patton's spearhead, tanks topped off from expedited holes, neared the perimeter through drifts. The Ardennes tested not just steel but sinew, where logistics forged the edge in unrelenting winter. The Ardennes, a frozen crucible, exposed the fragility of German ambition against a system built to endure. By December 26, 1944, the German offensive faltered in the Ardennes' deepening snow. The 5th and 6th Panzer Armies, aimed at Antwerp 120 miles away, stalled far short of the Meuse River. American forces, bolstered by the communication zone's relentless supply flow, regrouped for a counterattack. The 4th Armored Division, under Major General Hugh Gaffey, rolled toward Bastogne. Its tanks, fueled by millions of gallons, shifted from Liège depots. Heavier snow and bitter cold swept the region after December 20, icing roads and grounding aircraft sporadically. Yet United States logistics, driven by tens of thousands of trucks and IX Troop Carrier Command airlifts, sustained the fight. German reserves, starved of fuel and choked by terrain, could not match the pace. The relief of Bastogne marked the inflection point. The 101st Airborne Division, holding the town's vital road hub since December 18, endured encirclement with dwindling stocks. C-47, transports and gliders, flown by IX Troop Carrier Command, dropped 850 tons of supplies from December 23 to 27, braving flak and fog. Paratroopers retrieved crates under fire, rationing rounds to hold German probes at bay. The 4th Armored Division's Combat Command B, advancing from Arlon, covered 20 miles in 2 days, its Shermans grinding through drifts at 15 miles per hour. On December 26, at 1500 hours, lead tanks linked with Bastogne's perimeter, breaking the siege. Truck convoys followed, unloading ammunition and medical supplies to exhausted defenders. The German encirclement, meant to crush the hub, crumbled under resupplied American resolve. Adversary point of view. Panzer commanders cursed empty tanks, stranded 30 miles from the Meuse. American logistics flexed under pressure, adapting to shifting fronts. The communication zone, led by Lieutenant General John C.H. Lee, coordinated vast depots across Belgium, moving large fuel stocks from the Liège-Spa-Stavelot area to forward units. Engineers of the 1104th Engineer Group rebuilt spans over the Arth River, enabling convoys to supply the 3rd Armored Division. Forward depots expedited allocations, delivering shells within 48 hours of field requests. The 83rd Infantry Division's service company hauled rations through blizzards, navigating by compass in near-zero visibility. When a Von rocket struck a Liège depot on December 20, destroying hundreds of thousands of gallons, quartermasters rerouted fuel from Namur within hours. The 14th Major Port at Antwerp, under rocket fire, unloaded thousands of tons daily, feeding the supply chain despite disruptions. German logistics, by contrast, collapsed under the Ardennes constraints. The 5th Panzer Army, under General Hasso von Manteuffel, began with fuel for roughly 60 miles of advance, banking on captured depots. Kampfgruppe Piper, seizing 50,000 gallons at Bullingen on December 17, pressed toward Stavelot, but stalled as United States forces burned large fuel stocks to deny capture. The narrow approach via the Losheim Gap created bottlenecks, with Panzer IV tanks consuming 1 to 2 gallons per mile on rough terrain. Rail flow, crippled by prior Allied bombing, fell far below requirements, stranding reserves like the 116th Panzer Division. When skies cleared on December 23, Allied air power struck hard. P-47, Thunderbolts, and P-51, Mustangs, flying roughly 2,000 sorties daily by December 24, destroyed dozens of vehicles in repeated attacks, shredding convoys near Staumont and Vielsalm. Cold Line. Sherman's advanced 20 miles to Baston's relief. The human effort behind American logistics anchored the turnaround. Truck drivers of the 28th Infantry Division's supply trains, dodging snipers, delivered fuel to forward armor. Mechanics, working in sub-zero cold, kept engines running with field repairs, swapping frozen batteries under lantern light. The 969th Field Artillery Battalion, resupplied by airdrops, maintained high expenditure rates, firing thousands of rounds to blunt panzer assaults. In Bastogne, medics of the 101st Airborne treated wounded in makeshift aid stations using airdropped plasma. Pilots of IX Troop Carrier Command, flying C-47s through flak, dropped bundles within 500 yards of German lines. These actions, from rear echelons to front, wove a supply web that held firm. The number that matters is reach. American convoys spanned 120 miles from Antwerp to the front, sustaining momentum. German forces, bled dry, faced a grim reality. The 12th SS Panzer Division halted near La Glaise, abandoned vehicles for lack of fuel, crews retreating on foot. Infantry of the 18th Volksgrenadier Division, lacking winter coats, shivered in foxholes as snow piled after December 20. Luftwaffe sorties, limited to several hundred on peak days, could not shield supply lines from Allied air attacks. A railhead at Street, Vith, bombed by B-26 Marauders on December 23, left reserves stranded. The 2nd Panzer Division, reaching Celles on December 24, stopped 10 miles from the Meuse, its tanks immobile. American engineers, like the 291st Engineer Combat Battalion, felled trees to block roads, forcing German reroutes through quagmires. The offensive spearhead dulled, its ambition buried in the Ardennes' frozen ridges. United States counterattacks gained steam. The Third Army, under General George Patton, pivoted north, its divisions fueled by expedited hauls. The 7th Armored Division, holding Street, Vith until December 23, delayed German timetables, buying time for reserves. Allied air forces, unchallenged by the depleted Luftwaffe, bombed bridges and rail junctions, isolating German forward units. The 101st Airborne, now reinforced, expanded Bastogne's perimeter, its artillery pounding encircling Panzer Grenadiers. The communication zone's redundancy depots, trucks, and airlifts enabled this shift. By December 27, German commanders, their maps marked with stalled columns, faced a collapsing front. The 4th Armored Division's breakthrough, backed by 120 miles of supply lines from Antwerp, signaled the offensive's failure. The Ardennes revealed the stark contrast. American logistics, built on flexibility and depth, turned chaos into opportunity. German reliance on speed and plunder, undone by terrain and resistance, left reserves stranded. The relief of Bastogne, a linchpin, shifted momentum irrevocably. United States forces, now surging, prepared to drive the enemy back through the snow. German hopes, pinned on a swift dash to Antwerp, lay buried in snow, their supply lines a graveyard of ambition. By January 10, 1945, the German salient in the Ardennes shrank under relentless Allied pressure. Temperatures often fell below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 18 degrees Celsius, cloaking the forest in heavy snow. The 1st and 3rd United States armies converged, squeezing the 5th and 6th Panzer armies into a narrowing pocket. The communication zone, under Lieutenant General John C.H. Lee, fueled this advance, hauling supplies 80 to 120 miles from Antwerp, with 80 to 90 miles typical to the Bastogne corridor. Tens of thousands of trucks, many driven by Red Ball Express veterans, navigated icy roads to deliver fuel and shells. German logistics, crippled by shortages, left retreating units stranded, their retreat a chaotic slog through frozen mud. The First Army, under General Courtney Hodges, held firm at Elsenborn Ridge, denying the 6th SS Panzer Army a northern breakthrough. The Third Army, led by General George Patton, drove north, its 4th Armored Division expanding Bastogne's perimeter. Street, Vith, a vital crossroads, fell to sustained American counterattacks later in January, unraveling German defenses. The 101st Airborne Division, resupplied by 850 tons of air-dropped cargo from December 23 to 27, held Bastogne against fading assaults. IX Troop Carrier Command's C-47s and gliders, braving flak, delivered anti-tank guns and rations to snowbound paratroopers. Allied air forces, flying roughly 2,000 sorties on clear days after December 23, bombed German positions, while the Luftwaffe, depleted by Operation Bodenplatz's loss of about 250 aircraft on January 1, barely contested the skies. Cold Line. Convoys hauled 90 miles to Bastogne's front. American logistics powered the offensive's final phase. The communication zone's depots, stocked with large, dispersed fuel reserves across the Liège-Spa-Stavelot area, fed advancing divisions. Significant quantities were destroyed to deny German capture, starving enemy tanks. The 1,104th Engineer Group rebuilt bridges over the Aortha River, enabling the 3rd Armored Division to advance at 15 miles per hour on cleared roads. Forward depots expedited shells, with the 969th Field Artillery Battalion sustaining high expenditure rates against retreating Panzer Grenadiers. Truck drivers, enduring sub-zero cold, hauled loads through sniper-infested passes, their tires crunching frozen mud. The 14th Major Port at Antwerp, under Von rocket fire, unloaded thousands of tons daily, ensuring supply flow. When a Von hit a Liège depot, destroying significant fuel stocks, quartermasters rerouted supplies from Namur within hours. German retreat turned desperate. The 5th Panzer Army, under General Hasso von Manteuffel, fell back toward Houffalize, its Panzer IVs burning roughly 1 to 2 gallons per mile in rugged conditions, draining scarce reserves. The narrow approach via the Lochheim Gap, choked with wrecks, slowed withdrawals, exposing columns to airstrikes. Allied P-47s and P-51s destroyed dozens of vehicles in sweeps near Houffalize, scattering debris across snowfields. Rail junctions, heavily bombed by B-26 Marauders, crippled resupply, leaving divisions like the 116th Panzer stranded. At Celles, the 2nd Panzer Division, halted within a few miles of the Meuse, was shattered by the United States 2nd Armored Division's counterattack on December 26, abandoning 50 tanks. The number that matters is distance. American supply lines spanned 80 to 90 miles to Bastogne, while German logistics collapsed within 30. The human toll ground both sides. American drivers of the 83rd Infantry Division's Service Company, navigating blizzards, delivered fuel under artillery fire, their hands numb in open cabs. Mechanics repaired Shermans in sub-zero cold, swapping frozen batteries by lantern light. In Bastogne, 101st Airborne medics treated frostbite in cramped aid stations, using air-dropped supplies. German infantry, like the 18th Volksgrenadier Division, marched without winter gear, their boots splitting in minus 18 degrees Celsius. Panzer crews, low on food, scavenged villages, while quartermasters rationed bread to skeleton crews. A German convoy, ambushed near Stoumont, lost dozens of trucks to P-47s, its survivors fleeing into drifts. The Ardennes winter punished all. But American redundancy, depots, trucks, airlifts, sustained the fight where German scarcity failed. Adversary point of view. German officers cursed stalled panzers, fuel cans empty miles from salvation. The Allied vice tightened. On January 16, the First and Third Armies linked near Houffalize, trapping thousands of German troops. The 7th Armored Division, resupplied by expedited convoys, drove east, its artillery pounding retreating columns. Engineers of the 291st Engineer Combat Battalion cleared minefields, speeding armor toward the German border. The 101st Airborne, bolstered by 4th Armored Division tanks, pushed beyond Bastogne, reclaiming villages. Allied air power, unchallenged, bombed bridges and railheads, isolating enemy pockets. The communications zone's supply chain, stretching 80 to 120 miles from Antwerp, fueled this relentless advance. German units, like the 12th SS Panzer Division at Elsenborn, abandoned heavy guns, their crews retreating on foot. The offensive's remnants, bled of fuel and momentum, disintegrated in the snow. The battle's endgame exposed the logistical chasm. American systems, built on flexibility, delivered supplies across 90 miles to Bastogne's front, adapting to chaos. German reliance on captured fuel, undone by United States demolitions and airstrikes, left divisions immobile. The 2nd Panzer's collapse at Selles, within a few miles of the Meuse, marked the offensive's failure. By January 25, 1945, the Bulge was erased, German forces driven back to their starting lines. American logistics, tested in winter's crucible, proved decisive, turning a desperate defense into a crushing victory. American logistics, tested in winter's crucible, proved decisive, turning a desperate defense into a crushing victory. By January 25, 1945, the Ardennes battlefield fell silent, its snowfields scarred with wreckage. The German offensive, launched to seize Antwerp 80 to 120 miles distant, collapsed under logistical collapse and Allied resilience. The 1st and 3rd United States armies, converging near Houffalize, compressed the 5th Panzer Army inside a shrinking salient, while elements of the 6th SS Panzer Army were pinned along the north shoulder and redeployed east for Operation Nordwind. American supply lines, stretching 80 to 90 miles to the Bastogne corridor, powered the victory. The communications zone, under Lieutenant General John C.H. Lee, delivered fuel and shells through blizzards, while German reserves, starved of gasoline, abandoned vehicles in retreat. The Battle of the Bulge, Germany's last major Western Front offensive, ended in defeat, hastening the Third Reich's fall. The German toll was staggering. By January's end, Army Group B, under Field Marshal Walter Model, lost approximately 80,000 men killed, wounded, or captured. Scores of tanks and vehicles littered the Ardennes, with the 2nd Panzer Division abandoning many tanks and vehicles near Selles, within a few miles of the Meuse, after the United States 2nd Armored Division's counterattack. Rail junctions, bombed relentlessly by Allied B-26 marauders, lay in ruins, crippling resupply. The Luftwaffe, gutted by Operation Bodenplatz's loss of about 250 aircraft on January 1, could not shield retreating columns. Allied air forces, flying roughly 2,000 sorties on clear days, destroyed dozens of vehicles in sweeps near Houffalize and Stoumont. German logistics, reliant on capturing large, dispersed fuel stocks across the Liège-Spa-Stavelot area, failed when United States forces burned significant quantities to deny seizure. Cold line, 80,000 German troops lost in 1 month. American losses, though heavy, did not break their momentum. The 1st and 3rd Armies suffered 89,000 casualties, 19,000 killed, the rest wounded or captured. Yet their supply chain, spanning 80 to 120 miles from Antwerp, held firm. The 14th Major Port, under Von rocket fire, unloaded thousands of tons daily, feeding depots in Liège and Namur. The 1,104th Engineer Group rebuilt bridges, enabling the 3rd Armored Division to advance at 15 miles per hour. In Bastogne, the 101st Airborne Division sustained by 850 tons of airdropped supplies from IX Troop Carrier Command, repelled assaults until relieved. Truck drivers, navigating -18 degrees Celsius, hauled fuel through sniper-infested passes. The communication zone's adaptability, decentralized depots, and expedited allocations ensured no division went dry, turning the tide in a frozen crucible. The human effort underpinned victory. Drivers of the 83rd Infantry Division Service Company, frostbitten in open cabs, delivered rations under artillery fire. Mechanics, working by lantern light, kept Shermans running in sub-zero cold. Pilots of IX Troop Carrier Command flew C-47s through flak, dropping bundles within 500 yards of German lines. In Bastogne, 101st Airborne medics treated wounded with air-dropped plasma, their aid stations lit by flickering candles. German troops, by contrast, faced despair. The 18th Volksgrenadier Division, without winter gear, trudged through snowdrifts, their rations reduced to scavenged potatoes. Panzer crews, like those of the 116th Panzer Division, abandoned vehicles for lack of fuel, retreating on foot. The Ardennes' winter, unrelenting, punished the unprepared, while American redundancy prevailed. The battle's aftermath reshaped the war. Germany's defeat depleted its reserves, leaving the Western Front open to Allied invasion by March 1945. The Third Reich, drained of men and materiel, collapsed by May 8. American logistics, refined in the Ardennes, set a standard for modern warfare. The communications zone's ability to deliver across 80 to 90 miles to Bastogne's front, despite terrain and weather, showcased flexibility over rigid planning. Engineers, truckers, and airmen, working in concert, turned chaos into opportunity. The 291st Engineer Combat Battalion's roadblocks and the 969th Field Artillery Battalion's sustained barrages exemplified this edge. Allied air power, unchallenged after Bodenplatte, ensured German supply lines remained broken, while American convoys rolled on. The contrast was stark. German logistics, built on a gamble for captured fuel, unraveled when stocks were burned or defended. The 12th SS Panzer Division, withdrawing from the Elsenborn sector under heavy pressure, left behind wrecked equipment. The 5th Panzer Army, retreating toward Houffalize, abandoned scores of vehicles, its Panzer IVs, burning roughly 1 to 2 gallons per mile in rugged conditions, stranded in snow. American systems, by contrast, thrived on depth. Depots, stocked with millions of gallons across Belgium, fed advancing divisions. The 4th Armored Division's relief of Bastogne, fueled by expedited hauls, marked the offensive's failure. The number that matters is endurance. American supply lines, spanning 80 to 120 miles, outlasted German ambition, limited to 30 miles of effective reach. The Ardennes taught enduring lessons. Logistics, not just firepower, decided the battle. American flexibility, decentralized command, redundant depots, and airlift capacity overcame terrain and surprise. German overreach, banking on speed and plunder, collapsed when fuel and rail failed. The battle's legacy shaped military doctrine, emphasizing supply chain resilience. The communication zones model, tested in -18 degrees Celsius, proved that preparation and adaptability outweigh aggression in sustained combat. As the Allies drove into Germany, the Ardennes stood as a testament. Victory belongs to those who can move, feed, and fight through winter's grip.